Bueno, la razón principal que vine a este país fue realmente estudiar. The main reason I came to this country was to study. Um, why? I studied in Spain under a dictatorship during the Franco regime. As a matter of fact, that I graduated from the University of Barcelona in 1975, which is the year that the dictator died. So I always have this tremendous frustration for once that the university that I studied in was not the ideal university. We did more politics than learning. We become in some way autodidact or something like that, self-made students. But I have this idea that in some place I could be taught.
I came to this country, about 6 years back, and when I look back, what really reminds me of my experience here is the financial crisis of 2008. A lot of people lost their houses, lost their homes. They had to be driven out of their houses because they could not afford to have this house anymore. And it feels horrible when you've lived in a house for more than 5 years, 10 years, and you cannot be there with your family anymore. Same way, I left my country. I came here in 2006. But when I started looking for jobs in 2010, I felt like a homeless person. The way these people in 2008 probably felt like homeless people, because it was really hard to find a sponsorship. It was really hard to be independent and to live your life, even though when you're abroad, you feel like American dream is really what this country is all about: achieving what you want, being a free spirit, being entrepreneurial, and having everything that you need to be successful. So I don't want to feel like a homeless person anymore. I want to have the freedom because I pay taxes. I do everything that an American does. I care about this country. I really truly feel like an American because my values are very American, even though I'm not technically speaking American. So that's one of the ways I felt about this country over the last few years, and I hope I can at some point in my life be in a position when I don't have to worry about being sent back to my country and not pursuing my dreams.
By law, if I quit my job now, I have to return to China right away. There's no grace period. There's no there's no time for me to find the next one, find next endeavor or next opportunity, or there's no time for me to start my own business. Basically, to me, this is unreasonable.
Well, as an immigration lawyer, I've seen many issues come up during my practice in the United States with the U.S. immigration system. I see many backlogs in the issuance of green cards through employment sponsorship, especially in certain categories like for India, Mexico, China, and the Philippines, where people usually have to wait at least 6 to 7 years, even if they have master's degrees sometimes, in order to get a green card issued to them. That means oftentimes they will be stuck at a certain job for some time, where their pay is lower than most Americans, and where they will not be bumped up to a higher position because of their situation.
So my mother grew up in the south of Sweden, but went to Georgetown for her university degree. She fell in love with the U.S., and when she decided to have children, she was extremely stubborn towards my father and said that her kids absolutely had to have the opportunity of staying in America. So she insisted that we were born in the States. Me, my brother, and my sister, 3 of us, born years apart. Every single time she would fly into the U.S. just to get the passport. My father thought this was absurd, and obviously didn't agree with, they thought it was pointless, but my mother said if she had to swim, that's what she would do. So she would fly in, she was 8.5 months pregnant, and she would leave. I was 8 days old when I was on my first plane. So my mother being from Sweden originally, my father from France, I grew up in Spain. went to school in Switzerland, have moved around a lot my entire life. I have this miraculous American passport just because my mother thought it was important.
So something that really bothers me is when I go to the airport, every time I come here to the immigration part, and they always ask me, why do you want to study Spanish if you already speak Spanish? So that's I don't know if they are like, if it's a tricky question. It's just I can ask somebody, why are you studying English if you're American?
So when I came here, I found a lot of friends. I felt like it was my family, it was my own country, and in the heart, my heart belongs in the U.S. I feel like an American, but at the same time, I feel like America is a bad parent. For example, there are two kinds of parents. One are really good parents who take care of the children, who raise them up, who give them everything they need to be good children, to be successful, and the parents who don't pay attention to their children, who lose sight of the fact that they have responsibilities. So America adopts all these immigrants every year, like their children, but they don't parent them well. They don't give them the resources they need to be successful. And the only resource that this American parent really needs to give its immigrants is an ability to be able to get citizenship quicker, or to have independence, to find jobs, the right jobs, to start businesses. But there's nothing in the system right now to have that available. So I think America needs to move from that, bad parenting, to being a good parent who has the policies, who has the right infrastructure in place to help, immigrants who are like its children to be able to succeed in this country.
I got a visa really easily, but it was a student visa. I remember applying, going to the embassy, and like in I think it was 3 days, I got the visa sent to my home. So I thought, wow, I'm going to go to the US, I'm going to study there, and I'm going to get a visa to work afterwards. So, easily. So I came, and after 6 years being a student, now I'm looking for a job, and I am just fighting with the system because it is not as easy to get a job visa than it was getting a student visa. Right now, it seems that I'm gonna have to go through 3, 4, 5 different status until I get a green card or the work permit. So the adventure actually starts when you finish your studies. While you're a student, you're okay. The university accepts you. You have the student visa. You can travel. Right now, for example, I have an OPT that's a work permit for a year. And it doesn't allow me to go out of the country if I want to stay here and retain my status.
I came to college to the US, didn't even have to fill in those pages and pages of visa application forms. I just showed up, had my 4 years, and when I graduated, I missed home. So I decided I would go home for a couple of years, and if I ever wanted to come back to the US, I could come back whenever I wanted, thanks to this passport. However, my friends, a lot of them international students, I lived with them, many from all over the world. We're talking Korea, Mexico, Colombia, Turkey, even Scottish Europeans, all over the world. They had this stress of finding a job that would sponsor them for a visa. So they had to debate, starting their 3rd year or even before, what life they wanted to have for the 10 years or after graduation. Do they apply to a job and kiss their family and their roots goodbye because they need to stay here and they can't go back home? Or do they go home and get out of this system, this circle that allows you to stay in the US? So this is a debate, and I see them go through this stress. And I feel stressed by this too because it's the people that I spent my university years with in the US. But I escaped this fate because of this American passport. And so when I show up at customs and they hand me my passport and they're like, welcome home, I'm confused. I'm like, oh, right, thanks. So I feel lucky, but at the same time, I don't understand the necessary stress that my close friends have to go through. And I always see it as like, wow, thank God for this opportunity that my mom thought about 25 years ago.
After the end of my PhD at Cornell, I then applied for jobs. And of course, one needs to get a visa to keep working here. I ended up going for a 1-year postdoc in Spain, which was great for a change. And then I came back to the US for a 3-year position at the University of Virginia. This was a really good experience again for me, and I would have liked to extend this experience.
There are over 700,000 foreign nationals currently studying in the United States. They bring billions and billions of dollars to the economy of the United States. They are in a large part responsible for helping in innovations in science, technology, and a host of other areas. And yet at the same time, the U.S. government currently has a policy to only allow 65,000 people in total each year to receive work visas.
I sent lots and lots and lots of applications to find a job here, but of course also in Europe, because you never know where you actually are going to end up. And I ended up getting offers from Europe, but not from the US, even though in the end I've been here in this country for about 9 years now.
It frustrates me. And this is the same problem that they are faced by a lot of international students. If they don't get a job, they have to return to their country.
So recently, one of my friends left his U.S. citizenship and actually went to Singapore. Part of that was Part of that was motivated by the fact that he was getting a lot of tax benefits. But a part of it also was the fact that he could not hire talented people in the U.S. There were so many visa rules; it was so expensive that he thought, why not take these people to an immigrant-friendly country like Singapore, where if you have the right education, if you have the right talent, if you have the right skills, you can start your company very easily and make it a big success. And this very qualified person who was contributing to this economy left for another country, even though he's selling products in the U.S. So I think that's very important that the U.S. Politicians here, government here takes notice of that, because they're losing the top, the smartest, the most intelligent, and the most entrepreneurial people in this country. And right now there's only 15 or 20 people who have left this country like that. But in the future, in the next 5 years, there could be hundreds of entrepreneurs leaving this country just because of this immigration rules.
I feel like United States don't appreciate the talent that they have. And now I'm hearing that all the people who immigrated to the U.S. illegally, entered the U.S. illegally, they will be given the right to stay, become a citizen, while all of us who went to top-notch schools and got really hard to obtain engineering degrees, we're struggling with getting a visa. We're struggling with getting our green card. So we have the independence of selecting what we want to do. I can't start my own my company. I mean, I can if I have like $500,000 or $1 million, and I don't have that. And I don't think many people have that.
What other reasons kept me in the United States? Well, probably the fact that at one point I got married and I started having children. And my children grew up in the same environment, with the possibilities of having good education, living in a good environment, and at the same time having the best of the two cultures.
As far as my visa status, I was an F1 visa while I was a student. I've been a permanent resident after I married an American, and that was what was helped me to gain my citizenship, which I very recently obtained. Wanting to remain in this country, yeah, from my perspective, the professional perspective, it's very good. I'm very lucky. I realized that to be in an excellent university where I can do my job, and having a job, it's already a lot in these days.
I see also issues regarding just the issuance of work visas, because we're limited to 65,000 visas for regular professionals and 20,000 visas extras for those who have a master's degree or higher. Therefore, a lot of students who have graduated, unfortunately, will not be granted an H-1B visa. First of all, maybe they have not obtained sponsorship from an employer after graduation.
There's a backlog now, which is even for the fast tracking EB2, they call it. I have to wait for the applications to be processed from back in 2009, which is ridiculous. That means I've been already waiting for so long to find a company that would sponsor me. And now I have to wait even longer, which makes me sometimes think, is it really worth it?
I'm politically really frustrated by the way system is, because number one, I pay all the taxes in time every year, but in return what do I get? I get the same economic benefits that all the Americans do. I get the same roads, I get the same subway system, I pay for my healthcare, but I don't really get the real power, which is to be able to make change in the policies, which is to be able to vote or to be able to actually have a political impact on the way things are done here. So I think people who are educated, people who come here as legal immigrants, should be able to have the political power to make change in this country, because they are the life and blood of the economy and the social life in this country.
122 of the major research universities have recently sent a letter to President Obama asking him to reconsider this very hurtful policy of limiting some of the best and brightest students from the entire world from staying in this country and fulfilling the American dream. I think one of the big problems is that most Americans think that these people are taking away jobs from Americans because our economy is weak. But in fact, the opposite is true. There are places such as Facebook and Google and many of the top companies in the world who are located in the United States who cannot find enough qualified PhDs in the fields of science, technology, computer science, biomedical engineering. They are actually unable to fulfill their commitment to innovation because there are not enough qualified people in this country to fill those jobs. That says two things. One is, in this country, we need to rethink how we're educating our own citizens. But in the meantime, instead of having those jobs unfilled, we should increase the number of opportunities for the best and brightest people from around the world to do what has always happened in this country, which is to allow recent immigrants to transform America in a positive way.
So when my dad came over here for work, it was it was a privilege. Everyone in China at that time was trying to come to America because it was perceived as a place of opportunities. So when my dad came over here, he was really, really frugal for the year or two that he was here without my mom, just so he could scrape together enough money to get her to come over here as well. And so when she was over here and the two of them were here together, they considered themselves very lucky, and it was, again, because they knew that they would be provided with some opportunities here that wouldn't be available to them over in China. And I guess that's what they found, because, they ended up staying here, and they both, got postgraduate degrees here and got jobs here and started a family here.
After we filed the green card application, I was at the time. I started applying for college, and I really need the green card in order to receive scholarship money or even get into certain colleges for a particular scholarship. That's a more dominant benefit that U.S. citizenship or permanent resident enjoys. So I was wondering, are we just gonna sit around? But that's never my mentality. So I literally started writing to my senators, writing to government officials. I even wrote a letter to Vice President Cheney. So after I wrote different officials letters, a few months after I wrote those letters, one day I was in my math class, and all of a sudden the school announcer just called my name to the main office saying that the Vice President of the United States has a letter for me. And then obviously my whole class erupted, figuring, oh, well, who's this kid? He's either a terrorist or he's a big shot. So either way. So I went to the main office, and surely it was a letter from Mr. Cheney, who told me that he has read my case and that he's working with the relevant agencies to expedite my green card application. So now I don't know if there's causation, but a couple months later I got my our whole family got our green card approved. So that is a small thing, but it demonstrates elected officials in this country do listen to their citizens, and I do think that that one incident has reaffirmed my faith in American democracy. Even though every day, obviously, when we watch the news, cynicism seems to be the dominant theme, but I do think our, at least my personal observation is that our elected officials are working in the interest of the citizens here. And in my case, non-citizens as well. So
my world really expanded. It became a bigger world. And it becomes a bigger world, especially when you're out of your own country. I think the world expanded in general because we have a better look. We can look at our world or other worlds with more perspective. We have certain difficulties in understanding these nationalisms, especially when they are very narrow nationalisms, because nationalism is a way to look at yourself in the mirror instead of looking at the world and realizing how big it is. So in many aspects, I was very lucky to choose to come to the United States. On the other hand, I never feel that I was a marginal person in this country. I mean, at one point, I became naturalized in the United States, but the fact that I still have a Spanish accent and heavy Spanish accent, it never, for me, I never felt that I was going to be put down or be looking down. Maybe because of my profession. I mean, maybe instead of being teaching at the university, I will be picking up tomatoes. Maybe I will feel a different way. But in some way, well, we make ourselves. We decide who we want to be. We create our own personas, and if we have confidence about ourselves, we can create our own persona in many different places.
if you hold your green card for 5 years, you're eligible to apply for citizenship. and I applied because I always loved America. My personal values align very well with that of the United States. Ever since I was a kid, I've always yearned for personal freedom, religious, cultural, or political. And this country, in spite of its deficiencies, by far is still the safest fortress of human freedom. So at the earliest possible moment, I applied for U.S. citizenship, and that was a very smooth process. And this past May, I became a U.S. citizen. I'm very proud to be American.
At one point, I realized that to be totally happy, you need to have your heart, your mind, and your body in the same place. And I remember at one point I decided either I go back or if I stay. I decide I'm going to stay.